Welcome to the Spring Boot tutorial. I'm really excited about this because Spring Boot is the best thing that happened to Java since like ever. Before Spring Boot, if you wanted to create your project, you would need to figure out the libraries that you need. Then you would need to add these libraries in your POM file. After that, you would need to create a web.xml so you can start your web server. You would also need to install a web server. After that, you will need to create a WAR file from your project and copy it into your web server. This process sometimes took hours, sometimes days. As you will see in a few minutes, with Spring Boot, we can do that in like a couple of minutes. It also comes with production-ready features like metrics and health checks. With Spring Boot, you can concentrate more on writing your business logic than configuring your application. This tutorial will be part of a playlist where we will talk about different aspects of Spring Boot, so don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out. In this tutorial, we will create a simple REST endpoint from scratch. So let's dive straight into it. Quickest and easiest way to start a Spring Boot project is to use Spring Initializr, which is a tool provided by the Spring team. Open your web browser and go to start.spring.io. On this page, you have the option to choose if you want to use Groovy or Maven. You can also choose between Java, Kotlin or Groovy. You can also choose the Spring Boot version. Let's stick to the defaults that are given to us here. You can also change the project metadata, for example, your company name, your artifact name, demo name, and etc. You can also change the packaging type. I would also leave it to default. The Java version should match the Java version that you have on your machine. After that, we can select the dependencies that we need. For that, click on the button here, and then we will search for the dependency REST. As you can see, the first one that has been suggested to us is Spring Web, which includes REST API. So we'll select that. Once we have done that, we can either click on the button Explore and look how our project will look like, or we can just click on the button Generate, and which will download the zip file for us, and we can then unzip it and import the project in our IDE. Let's check out our newly created project in our IDE. We can see that the metadata that we gave in the Spring Initializr web page matches the metadata in our POM file. We also have a parent where the Spring version matches the Spring version that we chose. Let's look at the dependencies. We have the dependency Spring Boot Starter Web. This is the dependency that we chose. The Spring Boot Starter test dependency is always there, and we have a plugin which is Spring Boot Maven plugin. Other than that, we have a demo application class. This is the only class that is present in our code right now. This class has a main method which basically runs spring application.run and this class name, and then we have an annotation Spring Boot application. All these things together create a magical bootstrap structure which will make your application run with a simple command line. But before we do that, let's go and create a simple REST endpoint. Here I have created a new class, Demo REST Controller. This class is annotated with the annotation REST Controller. The class has a method sayHello with the return type string, and it returns a simple string hello world. With the annotation getMapping, this class and this method will provide an endpoint /hello to this application. Starting a Spring Boot application is very easy. To do that, we go to our demo application class, which is a main method, and we run it like we would run any class with a main method. We right click on it and then say run Java. If you look at the console, we can see that the Spring Boot application started in less than a second. To look at the result, let's go back to our browser, start a new window, and remember the endpoint that we created hello. We go to that with localhost, the port 8080 and /hello, and you can see the result. As expected, we see hello world. And like I said in the beginning of the tutorial, this whole process took us less than a couple of minutes. Where does a port 8080 come from? Let's look at the log file again. Here we can see that Tomcat was initialized with port 8080. This is part of Spring Boot auto configuration where it starts a lot of stuff with default values. The good thing is that we can configure almost all of these values using a simple application.properties file. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's go back to our IDE. In the resources folder, you can see there's a file called application.properties. Here we can set a new value, server.port equal to 8081. Let's save that, and then we can go to our demo application and start the application again. Let's look at the logs. We can see here that Tomcat was now initialized with port 8081. Let's go back to the browser and confirm that the port has been changed. So we go to the browser, change the port number from 8080 to 8081 and hit enter, and it works. Similarly, you can change almost everything about Spring Boot using application properties file. That brings us to the end of this tutorial. In just 5 minutes, you built your first Spring Boot application. We also explored the project structure, we created our first REST API, and we even managed to configure Spring Boot using application properties file. Spring Boot has a lot more to offer, like connecting to a database or creating a microservice. This and many other topics we will cover in our future videos in this playlist. So don't forget to subscribe. I will leave a link to the Spring Boot documentation in the description. Thanks for watching. Till next time.